We can start this concluding session. It has been a very full day. Congratulations for still being here. I hope you have had fantastic conversations. I hope your heads are full of new thoughts and ideas, inspiration from perhaps what other groups are doing, inspiration about perhaps different issues to consider, and hopefully some inspiration about the fact that by coming together, talking about these things, we can hope to make a change together. We can make a change together. So as we sum up, we're asking the question for beyond this small gathering. We're asking for this sum up session, what can the international community do? And we have two panelists who will speak to us on this. First of all, we have Tina Ramirez, who is president and founder of Hardwired Global. Thank you for being with us. And she'll be speaking first, and as she has another appointment she needs to go to. And then we will hear from Mati Yago, Advocacy Sector Coordinator for CAP in Northern Iraq. So we'd like to ask both of you, perhaps you know that yesterday at the Ministerial, a number of resolutions were passed, some commitments, and they actually included, for the first time, the commitments to protect gender rights, to include a consideration of gender vulnerabilities in freedom of religion or belief legislation and considerations, and also for those in the gender space to consider freedom of religion or belief. It doesn't tell us how it will be done, though. So, as we get to some advice on how it could be done, Tina, could you come and tell us a warm welcome for her, please?
Well, thank you all for having me, and congratulations on getting through the last 2 days. It's been wonderful. This morning I started off with a session on FoRB and education, and I didn't get to share the gender aspect of that, so I'm excited. I've known Emma Dipper for a long time, and it's an honor to be here to be able to share that aspect of the work that we do. So I run an organization called Hardwired, and it's built on the idea that we are all hardwired for freedom, that ingrained in each of us is this fundamental freedom and need to worship, to have the freedom of thought, conscience, expression, belief. And so what we do around the world is we help people experience that most fundamental right through our education and training programs. And so I want to share a little bit about the work we've done over the last several years with the British government. When we say what can the international community do, we can talk at the highest levels and we can go all the way down to what you and I in our just daily lives can do. And so I'm going to bridge the gap, and I'll start with the British government, what they did. In 2014, as you know, ISIS or Daesh invaded Iraq and decimated the ancient religious communities, their history, their culture, and their people. And in northern Iraq, which you're going to hear a little bit more about in a minute, I'm sure, over 600,000 children were living in an area where they were literally in schools, and the girls were actually not permitted to be in school. So it was mostly boys, and the others that were hiding at home were obviously not in school, but they changed the curriculum, and for 4 years they taught them how to hate and kill people who believe differently from them. And so if you can imagine, these children, for no fault of their own, were in an environment where they were indoctrinated to hate and to kill people who believe differently. When Daesh was finally defeated, there was an opportunity for these children to learn a different way, or to be lost to the cycle of violence and hatred that we have seen for generations unfolding in the Middle East. Now, my heart is for children, and I'm sure you understand as well as I do that the next generation will be determined by the children that are growing up right now. And so we could have left these children to themselves to have hated and seen one another through the lens of of intolerance and religious differences, or we could have helped them. So even before ISIS was defeated, we were given support from the British government. It was actually Baroness Annale's idea. She said, Tina, they had supported some of the other work we did in Iraq, and she said, well, you work with the children to help them. So we began in the refugee camps where the children had been displaced to work with teachers and children to teach them freedom of religion or belief, to teach them a different way. And when Daesh was finally defeated, these teachers bravely, as families returned to Mosul and the Nineveh Plains, went back into the region. And one teacher said it so well. He said, as I was going back into my home area or village, he was afraid of actually applying these lessons and going back into the schools. But he saw a little girl walking to school with a backpack amidst all the rubble and the destruction. And when he saw this little girl, he knew that he had to do something. He had to take that next step and courageously go into the schools, reopen them, and teach the children a different way, teach them about the dignity and the freedom of all people. And so that little girl was his inspiration. And for several of the teachers that we worked with, they all had different inspirations, but they were motivated to overcome the very grave challenges and danger that faced them and the violence that awaited them in the schools, and to help teach these children a different way. And they did. And since, for the last few years, since that time, these teachers have been working in schools across northern Iraq with government support. The government has opened up all of the doors for us to train all of the teachers in northern Iraq. And what we are seeing is that the communities are being transformed. The culture of the classroom and of the community is beginning to embrace, for the very first time in Iraq's history, true freedom of religion or belief for all people. Now, I start with that, but let me share something else that we didn't expect. And this gets to the point of the conference today, which is that when we began training these teachers, we gave them surveys at the beginning and then after the training. And then they would go and train students, and we'd give the student surveys and at the end of the training. And over time, we kept surveying them to better understand what their attitudes and behaviors were and how they were shifting in their perceptions of one another and of the religious other. And what amazed us was that 100% of the children that went in that had negative perceptions of women, of girls, that were willing to discriminate girls, or that didn't think that girls should be treated equally in the classroom, 100% of those that held those negative views did a complete 180 and decided to instead respect the rights of girls and women. We did not have any expectation that that would happen. We were teaching them freedom of religion or belief, human dignity, equality, just fundamental human rights. And as a result of that, the greatest impact that we saw in all of our programs was the impact on women and girls and their perspectives in the community that shifted to embrace them and their equal rights. Something was happening, and it wasn't something that we've anticipated. There were many other positive contributions, but over time we've seen how women have really been empowered and dignified through teaching freedom of religion or belief. It's often that people might think that these rights could be in competition, but what we've seen in Iraq is that they're not, that they are reinforcing of one another. That was the inspiration of the British government and the work that we were able to do in northern Iraq. Since then, we've taken this program to many other countries, from northern Africa to Nigeria and South Sudan to Kosovo and parts of Europe. And in every situation, we're beginning to see the same results. Children are becoming more empathetic, more capable of having dialogue and conversations with people who believe differently, and they're not afraid. They're able to overcome their differences and actively engage with one another, overcome their fears and their mistrust, and build relationships with people that they may have once been taught to be afraid of. And they're respecting the rights of girls and including them and including minorities in their community. One of the teachers this morning in our program shared a story of a couple of young boys in his class who, weeks after the training, he ran into this group of boys in the market, and the young boy said, Mr. Rian, your teaching was so amazing, it helped us win a soccer game. And he said, what are you talking about? It helped us win a soccer game. And the children said, well, we took the lessons with you, but before we took the lessons, there was a soccer tournament and we wanted to participate. So we asked the boys from the other village that were pulling together the team if we could participate. They said no, because they were from a different religion. But after the lessons, and all those boys were in the same lessons in the school together, they changed their mind and they invited us to join them, and we worked together and we won. This is the power of teaching children the freedom of religion or belief. And it's not something just for governments to support, which they should, but it's something for teachers, not just in Iraq, but everywhere, maybe even here, and maybe even with your own children. And as we've been at the conference over the last 2 days, and as I've been in this field for the last 20 years, it's been so encouraging for me to see the power of education transforming the culture of a community and a society to truly embrace the dignity and freedom of all people. And that is really, I believe, why we're here. That is something that all of us can do, no matter where we are or who we are. At Hardwired, we took these lessons that we not only applied with teachers, but the teachers themselves that we've worked with in many different countries developed, and we put them into a series of children's books to make them more accessible to people at all levels and ages. So if you'd like more information about that, you can visit our website at hardwiredglobal.org. But I encourage you today to see how you can be a part of the transformative impact of education for women, for girls, for religious communities, and for those suffering persecution around the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina Ramirez. And now we'd like to hear from Kitagawa about your experience.
Good afternoon, everyone. I believe you're all tired and you want all to finish this, right? I would like to thank the British government to organize this ministerial conference in 2022, the first conference after COVID, physical. And I would like to thank the LDS for inviting us and putting us in this platform to talk about youth engagement, FoRB, and other important topics for promoting freedom of religion or belief. I believe in those Fringe conferences, we listened to various type of youth from different backgrounds, holding outstanding and impactful stories that they shared. As I'm talking on behalf of them, what needs to be done, what I'm asking the British government and the international community to do is when they fund countries like Iraq and other countries that need to be developed, is to fund on conditions. What I mean about that, we will fund you for 2023, but you need to do A, B, C. For example, you need to promote FoRB in your country to sustain the funding for other years, or you need to have more youth inclusion in your decision-making processes. 2, international community must support youth advocates and youth inclusion for decision-making. Let's give more chance to youth parliament members who are newly get elected, because they might have new ideas and they could be changeable. Due all respect to all our old parliament members, but youth should have their space to engage and speak. Peace builders and advocates are going through many obstacles and many challenging aspects in their work. So we must try to provide psychological and spiritual support for them. They're going through hardships that no one can handle, especially working in critical areas such as Iraq. It's threat to death, and facing governments with critical extremist ideologies, this is something hard. So we should all together provide this support for the advocates and peace builders. Before I end, I would like to read a verse from Bible, Timothy 4:12. Do not let anyone look down on you, because you are young. Amen. Thank you all.
Well, I find that so encouraging, so beautiful, and not just the sentiment at the ending, but just knowing also from one of the other delegates that of this group of 30 people who came over, that they got together and said, these are the things that we want to say as a group. These are our recommendations. And that just adds so much power to it as well from those different lived spaces. Well, we have the honor to have with us, and I do apologize for the fact that I missed you sitting there. We have Audrey Kitagawa of the International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation, and this will take multicultural cooperation. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much again for this privilege to be with all of you this afternoon in the closing plenary. And I wish to again express my deepest appreciation to all of the organizers of this wonderful all-day event on a very important topic of gender equality, women, and our very important role in preventing conflict. Because the world seeks for peace, longs for peace, and everywhere we must ultimately find peace within ourselves. So the question that is posed for this last panel is, what can the international community do? And the deeper question is, who is the international community? Who is the international community? Here is the international community, each and every one of you. For while it seems that we are in the world, situated in our particularized form and structure, the fact of the matter is the world is also in us. And we are all global citizens seeking and striving for how we can attain to this inner peace. And of course, all of our great religious traditions have given us sacred words and texts to help inspire us and to help direct us into our inner selves, where not only the whole world, but the whole universe exists. And therein is a spark of inspiration and light, because those are the things that help us to find meaning in life and to give life meaning. And so with respect to the international community, thank you all for being part of the world. And in any event, what can religious communities, the role that they have played is absolutely indispensable, and we all recognize that because of the values that we embrace as communities of faith. And one of the most seminal values that we hold dear is this value of selfless service, the opportunity to serve selflessly to our fellow human beings. And therein, all of the conversations arise about what can we do, how can we find peace, how can we address the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And so religious communities are increasingly and have historically always played important roles in the communities, in the social, political, and economic lives of all of their citizens. So we are very familiar with the role of faith-based communities, and we also need to understand this whole aspect of freedom of religion and belief and the intersectionality of that with this issue of gender equality. And it has created some controversy. However, we must really examine the possible synergies that exist between FoRB and gender equality, and we also have to come to the recognition that it really needs to be explored further, because this is a very seminal and important point, because 50% of the world's population are women, and we have seen, as a previous speaker indicated, the rise of women. There women represented in law schools and medical schools are almost 50% and rising. So we applaud the efforts of women rising. When I went to law school, I was one of very few women. And when I started practicing law, My very first trial, the opposing counsel came to court with a tie, with all these little pigs on the tie, and under each little pig had the letters MCP for male chauvinist pig. So I think he made himself very clear about what he thought about being in a historically man's room, the courthouse, and to have as opposing counsel a woman. So in that situation, I think women have established themselves. And what did I do in that circumstance? Well, you study harder, you do better, and you go in there and, you know, you just do it better. So this is how we have established ourselves, and it's very important. I think women have the ability to multitask, but also we thank all of the people behind the scenes that have created the important legal instruments, and we have learned to utilize the judicial processes, the infrastructures of democracy, the infrastructures of justice, because we are all seeking justice. So this gender equality issue is really an issue of justice. What is fair? And for me, this is the reason why I went to law school. And I'm so happy that everywhere I go, I see more and more women lawyers. Yes, we do need more lawyers. Why? Because lawyers understand the importance of the rule of law to the issues of governance. And so in the balance of fairness, the lady who holds the scale and is blindfolded, justice is supposed to be administered equally and fairly. And so we study the international laws and conventions that have been created, that will continue to be created. But as global citizens that are represented here in this beautiful house, may we take it upon ourselves in the journey of our sacred life experiences to do the best we can to honor and respect each other, and to especially understand the importance of justice not only in our personal lives, but in the lives of all of our relationships, and to really respect each other. Such is the importance of the law. And so I welcome all of you to consider going to law school. The international legal instruments, the rules and laws that are created are so important because we do believe in the rule of law and the equal rights of all people and the human rights of all. Thank you so much.
Those are the most beautiful words of closing. Thank you so much. I feel blessed by the fact that this is both a personal story and a corporate story. And it means so much to hear the personal and then the call to others. This has happened today because there has been a call for us to come together. And I would like to invite Emma Dipper to come up here. She is the convener of the UK FoRB Forum's working group on gender and FoRB. And it is in great part thanks to her gathering of many of us together that we have been here today.
Thank you, Helen. I think I've got two things I'd like to do. The first is I would really like to say thank you to Sam Rushworth. Is he in the room? Where is he? Is he just... Okay, all right. He's coming. Oh, I'd like to say thank you to Sam Rushworth, who has just come back in. Because Sam has been magnificent at rallying us. As many of you know, you might have a team around you, but they need to be able to implement and do things. And we've got an extraordinary group of people, and Sam is one of those extraordinary people. And with him and the blessing and support of the church here and the wider Church of Latter-day Saints, today has happened. And actually not just today, yesterday, the day before, because it started in Manchester and then went to Birmingham and has ended in London. So I would like to thank Sam, and let's give him our thanks. And the second thing I'd just like to say, as we really do land this, because the question is, what does the international community do, is I want you to just be encouraged that 15 years ago, there were 2 women who felt that everyone said no to them. That every time we mentioned, how about the women, how about girls, how about understanding the difference between the experience of men and the experience of women, people just kept saying, no, just keep it to the side. Keep doing it. You're okay. Just keep it there. And it was only when we continued to have the courage to keep on keeping on, and we found each other, Helen and I, that these dreams are made. So it isn't just about bringing our beautiful visitors and hearing their voice, but it's actually about keeping on and finding someone to walk with you. So if you haven't got someone to hold your hand, find them. If you have a faith, thank you. If you have faith, hold on to that. And if you have the hope that humanity can give one to the other, don't lose sight of that, because this is still just a beginning and still so much more to come. So thank you very, very much.
It does make such a tremendous difference not to be alone. Well, it is up to me very simply to say the final thank you, which I'm sure is on behalf of us all, to the Church of Latter-day Saints for hosting us here today. And I would like to invite Elder Alan T. Phillips, who is second counselor in the Europe North Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to come forward for our closing.
We're almost there, right? The end is in sight, at least. Really grateful for so many people. I want to give some thanks as well. But let me just share a little story with you, if that's okay, and a couple of thoughts as we conclude today and the events of the last few days. And as Emma rightly said, starting in Manchester and Birmingham and being here in London, so many of you have done this trek. It's not nice, is it? You've been through so much around the world, and we bring you here and put you through almost more suffering, traveling up and down the country, sharing stories and knowledge and experience. But it's going to do so much good. It's already impacted so many people, and I know will lead to so much good. A few years ago, I had to go speak to a group of young people, and it was on a camp, and I took my 2 older children with me. And because it was camp, you forget, don't you? You wake up really early in the morning, crack of dawn. As soon as it's light, there's noises. And there was no one else stirring. All the young adults were sort of 18 plus. They had all been up and they were sleeping. And I was stuck with sort of 2 young teenage children at sort of 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning on the Welsh coast, thinking, what do I do? And we just drove a mile or 2 down to the local cove or beach. And there was no one, of course, no one at all, not a soul. And it was just this small little beach with just a handful of houses and 2 cliffs on either side. And we sort of walked and explored and looked at the cliffs, and the water was as clear as could be, and the sun was out. It's one of those good weekends in Wales, and the sun was there. It's clear blue skies and a beautiful sand, and just watched my 2 children just interact. And we're really there just looking at the beauty of it all. And it was time then to leave, and I sort of was walking back, but I didn't want to lose sight of everything that was in front of me. So I sort of, I don't know why, but I just walked backwards, my way back to the car, looking at them. And I had, as often you do, that little moment of insight. And I looked at the scene that was in front of me, and noted that, yes, the sky was blue and beautiful. And yes, The cliffs were stunning. The water was clear. The sand was pure and attractive. But the thing that caught my eye was the two children, these two young teenagers. And my realization as a father was that there is no creation that compares to people, to humans. As beautiful as mountains are, as great as oceans are, and this planet, this world, is truly beautiful, but it cannot compare to the beauty of humankind, of us. And it's easy when we look at children to see that sometimes, and then sadly today, in the last few days, we've had to reflect on when it's not that case. And I thought, well, what is the difference? For me, I see them because they're mine, they belong to me, so they're my children. So it's really easy to see them in their best light. But they're visible to me, they're equal to me. It would be abhorrent to sort of say, well, one child means this to me, but the other is less somehow, or less valued, or less precious, or less seen. And I know that if we have faith or a belief in deity, that makes sense to us, this notion that we're all created and we're all equal. But even if there is no faith, or if there's a belief in just the beauty of humankind, it is this incredible creation. We are these wonderful animals, these wonderful beings, and there's so much good and so much creativity, and yet somehow through learning and teaching and socialization, we see each other. We are taught to see each other in wrong terms, in incorrect terms, in damaging terms. And this is the concern. I felt so much peace today, and so many comments that could be made. Healer, who said, peace is not just the absence of war or conflict. It is about flourishing. This sense that it's not enough to just stop it and see it cease. It's that these children, or us, or humankind, needs to have all opportunities to flourish, to live, to develop, to grow, to enjoy the best of this life and these experiences. It was also shared today that women are the change makers, and I think we've seen that gender is so important in this peace-building process, and that we need meaningful participation, not symbolic only. I think our young generation will be the ones that call that one out. They've just had enough. It will be the symbolic gestures end now. But with that, then, I think the responsibility is handed to them to make sure that participation and change and engagement is real and meaningful, that there is real impact, that lives are better as a result for all of us, wherever we live, whatever our background or our situation. The delegates. I don't know who's filming this, so I shouldn't say this. It's not a good start, is it, to this? I will at least share my honest feelings. When you go back and forth between the QE2 and here, it is all good, and we need our lawyers, as has been said. We need the laws, we need the protections, we need our politicians, we need our ministers, we need our advocacy. But let me just tell you where my heart has been these last few days. It has resonated here with you, and in particular with the delegates. When I've heard your stories, your experiences, your passion, and I know that we're not all here, so hopefully others will go back, and some have already stopped for the day. Please share that with them. Let them know the changes that I felt and the hope that I've experienced. I think, if I counted, there was about 26 of them. And you could see their passion. One from Akwe, I think, said today, at what point did you want to get involved? And I can't remember if it was Hina, who it was who said it, but she just said, I just had enough. It was that point, right, of seeing things, the wrongs, the violations, over and over and over, and then that critical point where it's enough, it's too much. I have to do something, whatever that is, I've got to do it now. I have to act upon it. It's over 70 years, these wonderful universal Declaration of Human Rights, and even in the preamble, it talks about the recognition of inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family, and that it's the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. But instead, we have this disregard and contempt for human rights, and it's resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief, and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of common people. But it is not yet fulfilled. And even if it was only being experienced by one community, or one nation, or one people, it is one community too many. It's not nice to close, but let me just share some of the experiences. My children playing on a little beach in an idyllic setting, but when I think of my children, and if they had to go through, and my daughter in particular, at the age of 16, if she had to go through any of these experiences, violence or sexual violence, displacement, being a refugee or IDP, removal from your community, separation from family and loved ones, forced marriage, underage marriages, fear, living in fear daily, every hour, every night, every day, or having less education, less rights in a court of law, less ownership, less resources, less freedom, disenfranchisement, marginalization, persecution, loss of identity. As a parent, my aspiration is that she has all the opportunities afforded to her so that she can realize her own identity, her own sense of who she is, what she's about, and what she wants to do. And yet we have so many communities, millions still being deprived, and women and children paying the higher price and being robbed of that identity. We all know the definition of othering and the process, and there's cognitive aspects to that, but it's the social, cultural, man-made. And on this occasion, I emphasize man-made. Othering involves zeroing in on a difference and using that difference to dismantle a sense of similarity or connectedness between people. Othering sets the stage for discrimination or persecution by reducing empathy and preventing genuine dialogue. Taken to an extreme, othering can result in one group of people denying that another group is even human. And that's at the crux of it. It is that ugly, that brutal, in my mind, that disgusting, that in their view, one group trying to establish itself over another group feels the need to dehumanize, to say that group is less, that they somehow have less rights, that they somehow are worthless. And then all that triggers and leads to and ensues over years of indoctrination and socialization and prejudicial thought and violence, and it sees itself play out over and over again. So, it sounds like I've depressed everyone before we end. That's not a very concluding remark. So why then do I leave more with that image of two children playing on a beach in Wales? Because of the hope that I felt here today. And these are my takeaways. I especially want to thank, I guess no one else can do it, we're going to end soon anyway, so I want to thank Emma and Sam again. Sam's been thanked, but I want to point out, early on as we talked about the International Ministerial, it was them and others who in their own group and discussion shone that light again on the impact on the women and the children specifically. And in that moment, it just resonated and it clicked. And it has ever since. And in these last few days, it has even more. But I think for me now, not only that they are the greater victims and have experienced it, but as we've seen today, are the peace builders, are the answers, are the solutions. And I don't know, our younger delegates, I shouldn't separate you out, but the groups, the panels, the discussions, in listening to you, in seeing what you're doing, I am filled with hope. This is the hope that those children can be treated the same. This is the hope that society can change, that these rights can be lived, that they can be universal. I want to thank those from Bosnia, the Central African Republic, Ghana, the Uyghur community, Iraq, Israel, Palestine representatives, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, and others. I want them to know that you have been seen and you have been heard. And I thank all those who have arranged that. And you have been seen and heard here and in Parliament and at the QE2 conference and by over 60 countries and representations. And I hope that that leads, and all the ripples and all the impact, that they will take your stories home. They'll take your experiences, your power, your voices, your impact, and that good will be done as a result. Let me just end by saying, I feel like we also need our own personal assignments. You're all exhausted. Our delegates we gave a little gift to, and I know not everyone gets a gift, so I apologize for that. For everyone else, the reward will maybe just be knowing that you can have a little rest this evening. But let me, if I can, give each one of us an assignment in terms of, well, what do we do next? How do we change these processes? How do we have better education, better engagement? How do the women youth really act as mentors? And how do we all do it as well? It's not to leave behind. It's like we have to do it together and all need to be involved. We need to ensure that all people are seen. We need to ensure that all people are heard. We need to ensure that women are seen and heard and are in the heart of all of our processes, our organizations, our decisions, our faith communities, our civic societies, wherever it may be. I was thrilled to be at the QE2 and to see a panel of 9 young people. And it wasn't deliberate, but I think of those 9, it was 1 male, if I counted, and 8 female. So a historic algorithm that was applied to sort of counter gender balance for a few decades at least. But it was great, and to see their power and their voices. We need to ensure that these young people, as we've heard in our groups, they're 40% of the world's population. They've had enough. And if they share the word one with another, and if they spread and raise the awareness and the profile, more of them will have enough. And then more of them would have had enough. And they will be the ones, the generation that will turn around and just say, no, we don't get it. We don't want it. This ends now. Because these Gen Zs and Gen Alphas and all the letters that come after are more inclusive and accepting than I think any generation of people that we've probably seen in hundreds and hundreds of years. They don't want to see marginalization at any level. For them it matters. Why? Because they see us as human beings. They see us as part of the same human family. So if we're looking for answers and solutions, as you all know, because you're the ones, it's time to turn it over to them. It's time to bring them in, to let them be the ones that drive it and to be involved in it. So here's the homework. Consider, just as you walk out of the building, what did I learn? What did I feel? And what will I do as a result? And I say that last one so sheepishly because I have in front of me the people who are doing so much, working so hard and working tirelessly in all of this. You have literally created organizations. You have created charities. You are running law schools. You're leading organizations. You're doing all of these wonderful things. So this is going to be a little odd invitation for each one of us. It's the power of just individuals. I'm not asking us to go away and say, yeah, I heard it, I felt it. I'm going to set up my organization or my charity. Maybe some of you will. Maybe some of our younger students were inspired to do things. Maybe they will go to law school, as was said, and they'll do whatever is needful. But here's a simpler thing to maybe do just in the next 24 hours, 48 hours at max. Share it. Share how you feel today with one other person. Just one. Let them know what you felt. Let them know of your concerns. Let them know of the things that are going on out there. Let those who have traveled from these countries and our delegates and our wonderful chairs and panelists and everyone else, let what we've heard in these last few days be seen and be heard, and share it with one person and keep it relevant within us. Make it more about now. I do think that they can lead us to a better society. I'm going to go home and put my own children on obligation and share it with them first and foremost. As messed up as it is in so many places of the world, it needs to change, and it needs to change now. I express my love and gratitude to each one of you. The fact that this is a concern in your heart and in your minds fills me with hope. Now we need to take it out to others so that there one day will be a time when no human being is seen or treated as less or inferior or has to experience the violence or identity-based violence or whatever it might be. And all are seen, all are equal. All have the opportunity to a life that flourishes. And we do it until everyone has access to those same opportunities. Whoever it is, woman, child, man, whatever community, whatever faith, whatever cultural, ethnic, or national background. We keep going until everyone really, really gets to live and appreciate the dignity that is inherent with being human. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am wondering if Sam would like to close. As you sit over there, do you have something you are hoping to say or not? I can try. Okay, and then we are going home because it is late and everybody is going home.
No, in all honesty, there's nothing left that I could say to match what I've heard, other than to say thank you again to those who are here, and I will leave it there, and I will pledge to do the things that I've heard.